Is this working? What the hell is up, you guys? On my end, this looks like it's okay, so I choose to believe that this is okay. And I'm gonna be honest with you folks, I'm incredibly nervous. This stream will involve alcohol. I had a shot, I have a mule. Otherwise, I will have far too much anxiety to talk with you lovely folks. But thank you all for joining. I've been wanting to do this for a while. It's long overdue. I wanted to do it when I hit 50,000 subs as a way to celebrate, but stuff came up in life and it's a little delayed, but we got there. So, all right. I don't know how to do this. Bear with me. I have this really haphazard setup. I'm using OBS, but I figured it out last minute, so if stuff's a little janky, bear with me. But yeah, I guess let's get into it. I did ask you guys to send some questions my way because I figured that would be a good way to kind of keep things moving and maybe ask stuff for people who can't make the stream and all of that good stuff. So I'm going to try to go through those. I'm going to try to pay attention to chat because you guys sitting here, I appreciate the ever-living hell out of. Glad you're not in Press's closet. That is my closet, to be fair. But, yeah, alright. I don't know. Hi, guys. Hello, folks. Welcome, everybody. We did start this stream on time. Good evening, all. If this goes well, I will probably try to do a few more. Honestly, I was debating doing a Tales of NGSW from the beginning. That is a program I was working on while it was in its developmental stages and had worked on up until very recently. So if you get a little bit of alcohol with me, there will be fun horror stories that I think everyone will enjoy. And Theory White Supremacist, don't worry about it. Ask questions in chat. I'm going to prioritize the questions that people asked ahead of time, but I'm absolutely going to be paying attention to chat and everything too. So if stuff comes off, please ask. I will do my best to kind of multitask both. Yeah, we're here for the hot lore, the hot goss. All right, I guess probably one of the biggest questions I get in YouTube comments, I got it a few times in the chat here. Yeah, the fails of NGSW, exactly. And I got a couple questions on Instagram. It seems like you guys just kind of want to know a little bit about me. I don't know what that means. I think most people kind of want to know like how I got into guns and how I got into the work. So I grew up in a really rural bumfuck nowhere. I didn't realize it wasn't normal to get the first day of hunting season off until I went to college. So yeah, absolute middle of nowhere, which means guns were everywhere. I wasn't super big into shooting, but I planked. I had fun with it. And then I guess I reconnected with a friend who I've known since like preschool, probably my freshman year of college, at a shooting range. And we're like, hey, you shoot. Wow, let's go shooting more together. And he had a shit ton of milsurps, so that interest spiraled like crazy. And then I started getting into the engineering, and then I started getting more into like actual like just regular shooting, and that spiraled very quickly, especially once I started doing it for work. Yeah, it's not an addiction, I swear. It's definitely not an addiction. As for how I got into it for work, though, probably dumb luck. I don't know if it's what I planned on doing. I have a bachelor's in chemistry because at the time I knew I wanted to do more school. I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a surgeon or an engineer, and chemistry kind of let me do either or as I figured my life out. But I started doing explosives as I was finishing school up, and that was literally just dumb luck. I saw a job posting and I was like, holy shit, why would I not want to make explosives? That's cool as all hell. And I did that for about 4-ish years. And then I saw a job posting for something involved in the small arms with the DoD, and the company I was with kind of was a dead end for growth. I loved what I did so much. Range days are that much better when there's explosives going off. And I really liked guns, so at that point I was like, hell yeah, better development, better job security, and I get to tinker with cool shit that I really love at this point, so I took it. Yeah, fantastic. It's been great since. I did that for about 5 years, doing new and emerging munitions for the DoD, and within this past year or so, I've been doing small arms development for the private industry, but still largely for government procurements. I'll be honest, most of the work I do is for government contracts or for like your soft units primarily, but it's fun. It is definitely fun. Anyone who wants to do it, I wouldn't recommend actually doing a ballistic degree focus. Stick with engineering, stick with mechanical, something broad, and you learn the skill as you go. I've just been really fortunate to kind of get those lined up for me. Is that a Weekend Gunner hoodie? It is, actually, and they are super cozy, and they have really cute camos. Yeah, mini ad, not ad, but they're definitely comfortable. Although I will say, for a sun shirt, it's kind of like it's not the material you would expect, but it's still a great shirt. And I love Alpenflage, so we'll take it. But it is an addiction. Yeah. You only watch for the Maisie footage. First of all, thank you. I don't expect anything from you guys, but I appreciate when you guys are here and donate and whatever. It all goes back to the channel. I hope you guys know that all of this comes out of my pocket. So whatever you do put in, just even views help me get ammo and stuff. So I appreciate everybody sitting here. Every comment I get, even if it's negative, it's still cool shit. The fact that I have anyone here is awesome. Cool. Can you talk about how you became affiliated with the Nova Group folks? That's actually a great question. I was a fan of Nova. Screw it, Nova. I was a fan of Nova and really wanted to hang out with Nova. So I was like, screw it. Maybe if I talk to Brock, I'll get to meet her, and it worked out fantastically. But, yeah, no, when I started making a YouTube video, I was a fan of Brass Facts, I was a fan of Hop. Brock seems way more approachable, so I reached out to him, and I was like, hey, I have a small channel, but I work in the industry, I do ammo, and I know you do a lot of preparedness stuff. I know you talk a lot about, like, applications of certain rounds. Wondering if you maybe want to do a collab, because I think I can maybe provide some insight as to, you know, what might work and why, and some conversation on 5.56 since he does a lot about that. And surprisingly enough, he said, sure, let's talk. What do you think we can do? And we figured stuff out, did a stream together. And it's been great since. You know, Brock and Hop are both fantastic people and super supportive, so I'm grateful for that. Yeah, too bad I had to talk to Brock first. Hop doesn't answer messages for anybody, so unfortunately I don't think that was gonna happen. Andy Cigars, thank you for that. Maisie will get much love on your behalf. She's currently in a little, like, I don't know if I can show this, cave. She has a little den over there that she gets to hang out in, so she's here in spirit, just over my shoulder. General thoughts on reloading for the average viewer. Also, thank you very much for the donations, guys. I really don't expect anything from you all. I have mixed feelings on reloading. From a you save money perspective, I really don't think you do. Unfortunately, it's expensive to get started. It's expensive to really hone in on what you want to do. But there's a lot of value in learning. A lot of the people that I work with are people who became passionate and learned and became great engineers and developers from reloading. And if you like niche ammo types, milsurp types, you absolutely will save money doing that. But if you're only doing 5.56 and hoping to save a quick buck, you're gonna have to do a shit ton of rounds to make it work. On the other hand, I find reloading therapeutic. It's something that I just kind of enjoy doing. Even, you know, I do guns and ammo all day at work, and I'm still happy to just kind of load some rounds from time to time. So if you're okay with that being a lot of time and maybe not best value, but it's just something you want to learn about and want to do, it's fantastic. So I don't know. It's a good thing to have, but the idea of saving money is you're a long way away from that. So take that how you will. But all right, did that transition okay? Figure I can show you guys the chat to the people who posted on YouTube with comments. I'm gonna start in reverse, if that makes sense, so I can answer the oldest ones first and work my way up to the newest ones. And I tried to not look at these too much in advance because I figured it's more fun for all of us if I catch questions as they go. Yeah, I don't want to have to think about. It's not fun if I pre-plan my answers, so we'll see what they go here. Gavin Mullet, you absolutely save money reloading. It takes a lot of rounds before you save money if you're buying a lot of equipment, and especially if you try to reload a lot of different caliber types. It's a give or take. If you have the disposable income to set it up ahead of time and you shoot a shit ton, there's value to it, but you will take a while till you get there. Are you familiar with the 64 grain bonded solid base bullet from Nosler for 5.56? The FBI HRT apparently uses it. Any thought on bonded bullets in 5.56? Point for Matt. Great question. I didn't know how to set up the buttons, by the way, so I apologize for stuff not showing up here. One day I'll figure that out. Yeah, actually, and I do think that is a really great round. It's super consistent, and I am a fan of 60-ish grains 5.56s. A lot of people are on that 77 train because, 262 is in that, and that's what the military uses, so it's great. And it is a fantastic caliber, weight, round, everything. But 64 winds up being a good sweet spot for, really, if you change barrel lengths, you go to shorter barrels, you'll still get super solid performance. It's that middle ground that's just chef's kiss. Yeah, they're solid, consistent performers. I absolutely think they're great rounds. So, good question. But yeah, let's get started, I guess. First question here from my boy Dan. He is in the Discord, so hi Dan. But can't wait to hear 357 SIG is the best PDW round ever made. I cheated, I didn't answer this one, and I will say that just for him. I don't know if I agree with it, but you have it here, folks. 357 SIG is the best PDW round ever made. It is a bitch manufacturing-wise, by the way. I don't have a lot of experience with it, but I know when we tried to make it for a short period of time, it was a little bit of a hang-up. But I don't think it's a bad caliber, bad cartridge, so. But Tim of the Boat did also ask, how short of a barrel can you go with for 22 subsonic for maximum suppression with best subsonic velocity? That's actually a really hard question. 22 winds up hitting a weird spot where I think you get like a spike of decibels at like 4 inches, but if you start to go past 10 inches, you create friction in the barrel. So what winds up happening is your powder is burnt out between like that 10, 12 inch mark. Ooh, I don't know if I have a good answer for that. Tricky question. I'm gonna go with 8 inches, final answer, for no actual basis. If you do start to hit 10 though, you create friction in the system and you'll lose velocity. If you're already subsonic, 22 subs is quiet as all hell. So that's, you're saving pennies at that point. Although, I don't know if you guys have ever had the opportunity, I suspect not. It is very surreal to fire a 22 subsonic round in a tunnel that has been padded with soundproofing, where you can like hear your heart in your ears and your blood flow. So a subsonic round that's already that quiet firing in there winds up being absolutely just surreal to listen to. But you guys can debate here over 45 gap and 10 mil and absolutely not 7.5 FK. I do think, though, if you're going to do a PDW, it's probably a good excuse to size up. 9 mil PDWs are super common, and I love 9 mil. But if you're adding in that extra length and stability, take advantage of the ability to shoot a heavier, snappier round with that. But I don't know. I don't know if it's 357, I'll be honest. Alright, Thatcher Freeman. Sorry if you've covered this already, but do you have thoughts on the G9 external hollow point compared to conventional law enforcement hollow point rounds? Thatcher Freeman, the apology next to the sad face, the little sad face down here, that is gonna give me absolute heartache for the rest of the day. Bad combination. I do have a video on external hollow points if you are curious. I think I called it like the future of hollow points, so go check that out. I am a huge fan of fluted projectiles. They get a lot of shit just for looking like screwdrivers and being stupid. And I totally get the idea of them being gimmicks because screw it, everything's a gimmick nowadays. But I have seen a lot of testing done at ARL, so the like Aberdeen Army Research Labs, a lot of testing with my current job, and they are solid performers. The cool thing about the fluted projectiles is that they're very agnostic to barriers and will still perform in gel as you expect them to without the barrier being there. And in my experience with work, a lot of law enforcement agencies are actually starting to adopt this. It's been a pretty quick, you're seeing a lot more taking it on. Even the FBI is looking at it on taking it on. So there's a lot of really good evidence. There's more companies than G9 that do it. I'm sure there's differences between some of them. I have a video coming out this Sunday actually on the Nov X ammo, which is a fluted version of it. So check that one out. That actually, I won't spoil the video yet, but I stand by them. I think they're fantastic. Although I will give you the fair warning, just like hollow points, they don't necessarily always feed well on certain weapons. Generally speaking, they will feed fine, but, some people's guns don't like certain hollow points, no different than some people's guns don't like certain flutes, and not all flutes are created equal. So at that point, just because G9s doesn't work in your gun doesn't mean Underwoods won't, and so on and so forth, but I do stand by them. Alright, back to the chat here. John Leonard, thank you very much, by the way. 4.6 will go through 20-inch of steel and destroy all things. Get the fuck out of here. Get out of here. I hate 4.6 as much as I hate 5.7. They're both terrible rounds. And humongous. What is humongous? Please enlighten us. A woman on the internet must be a bot fed. I'm off my meds. Counterpoint, I have the body of a 13-year-old boy, so I don't know if I count as much of a woman, but let's see. The Gun Nerd, please talk about 68 versus 77 grain OTMs. What is your opinion on the best barrier blind handgun rounds for micro compact, and full-size handguns? And anything about 6 arc? Also, will the handgun cartridge to replace 9 as the standard be larger or smaller diameter than the 9? Interesting. Okay. Like I said before, I'm more of a fan of projectiles in the 60 grains for 5.56 over ones in the 77s, just because I think a lot of people are running shorter systems now, and 60s in general, not just 68, 64 is probably like the optimal sweet spot. They really just wind up being really good performers, a good middle ground between energy and velocity, especially like everyone's trying to go smaller nowadays, and I love that. I appreciate that so much. I do not have the capacity for full-sized weapons, you guys. And here we go, actually commented to that. Barrier blind goes to G9 Underwood, Extreme Defenders, and Penetrators. Actually, in line with the previous question, I do think if you're looking for something that's consistent, that's the best way to do it. There's a lot of good hollow points, like the critical duty ones that have that like flex lock tip in them that wind up being better, but you always run the risk of plugging hollow points. So especially in compact sizes where you lose a little bit of the oomph, monolithic rounds, copper monolithic rounds are great if you're looking for barrier. You get a little extra love out of that. So anything in that family, monolithic, copper monolithic, the fluted projectiles, I definitely recommend in that front. And anything about 6 arc. That is a hot topic, a fun conversation. I have been really fortunate to get to play around with the Surefire iCar, and that is a shitload of fun, but it has been some growing pains with the gas port locations and sizes. I like 6 arc. Quite frankly, I think it's going to be around to stay. It's a little bit of a, you need to figure out what works with your gun kind of situation, but I think it's getting a lot better as it's growing in popularity, so we'll see. But it's definitely around to stay. There's already 6 arc peak pressure alloy cases and MIM cases, and it's a good round for sure. And shoots really light recoil. And also, will the handgun cartridge to replace 9 as the standard be larger or smaller diameter? I don't think we're replacing 9 anytime soon, especially with the high pressure cases. We tried larger diameters and people didn't like the recoil, and we tried smaller diameters and people don't like the energy on target. So nine's probably also around to stay. Need a drink from you guys. Hey Boondock, love the channel. Thank you, Divik. I appreciate that. What caliber drone is the best? Please elaborate on that, Hustle Bones. What do you mean, what caliber drone? Or like what against drones? Or I don't know if I'm tracking that question correctly. But Savage Lee with the savage comment. Cheer up, little gal. You look like a woman in about 42 years. Finally, one day my time will come. Thank you. I hope. Fingers crossed. Maybe by the time I'm freaking in my 70s. Appreciate that. That is so funny. Ooh, tricky question. 5.56 by 69. Can you really be sure that 9mm can't blow the lungs out of the body? Not even federal HST or Spear Gold Dot that Ellie loves. Yeah, you time it right with someone's breath and that expansion on top of their inhale, you're absolutely just, it's gonna look wild. I swear, guys. It'll be the coolest and most grotesque thing you've ever seen. Kind of like the, what is it, like the eagle thing that the Vikings used to do, but from a bullet, not a hatchet. I don't know. Alright, Andy, were you rocking a honey badger hat in some uploads? I did not have Hot Time Tum with Kevin. That was a honey badger from the projectile, the ammo, the Black Hills fluted projectiles. It was a hat from them, not the honey badger Q. You think I would rep some Q shit here. We know better. That's so funny. Weak Sauce, also in my Discord. Hey boy, how you doing? I know you. Since the invention of self-contained cartridges, which has developed more, projectiles or powder, how different are our run-of-the-mill cartridges compared to 100 years ago? That's actually a really tough question. I think a lot of the recent development we've had has been in more manufacturing senses. So projectiles, I don't know, I'll be honest, right? There's a lot of ways to equal 10, 5 plus 5, 2 plus 8. Guns and ammo are kind of the same way, and a lot of the inventions we've had, the innovations we've had, kind of still get us to the same end result. So it's just a matter of what manufacturing makes the most sense, or what's more reliable and consistent, and not as many huge crazy jumps in technology. Until recently, I will say the peak alloy cases are really freaking cool, and they are driving the rest of the industry into doing different, which is nice to see. For projectiles, there's been a lot of nuances in terminal, but I think for most people, you wind up nitpicking what that looks like. Our ability to manufacture more nuanced and detailed things, there's a lot of projectile manufacturing that's microscopic. You can't even see it, but they're tiny little additions that do help terminal consistency. But at the end of the day, if it kills, it kills. If it works, it works. And we're just stacking micro odds in our favor. And for a lot of the powder that has recently come out, a lot of it has been in regard to temperature stability, which is fantastic. There's a bunch of different powders that still accomplish the same goal. And interestingly enough, with the push of lead-free primers, they don't interact with your barrel the same way. So there's been a lot of efforts for propellants to kind of combat the negative aspects of lead-free primers, which has been a really interesting push to see. I'm going to give the bigger jump to powder right now, though. Not that I think projectiles haven't made changes. There's a lot of cool stuff. I just think I can notice more legitimate effects with powder as opposed to projectiles, just for the average person and not in a lab setting. But I do think 100 years ago was a very different situation, a very far less consistent situation. Definitely not reliable, definitely not temp stable. Would not recommend 100-year-old equipment, that's for sure. 100-year-old ammo, that's for sure. Matthew Levy, High Car versus XM7, which one you backing? High Car, hands down. I started with NGSW in its early developmental stages, and it has been nothing but absolute horror. I just don't understand how that program went past freaking the drawing board. And is anyone making iCar lower receivers from Robert Little? PSA actually just released one not too long ago. Brassfax is testing that out, and it's been pretty reliable thus far, it seems, but I don't think he has more than 200 rounds in it, so, but we shall see. And Dime Dynamics, can you go more in depth on lead-free primers? A ton of my friends have elevated high levels. So, I mean, it's exactly what it sounds like. There's a couple of different ways to do it, and I don't think they're a bad thing in the slightest. They've proven to be pretty reliable, pretty consistent. In my experiences, the lead actually interacts with the copper and winds up essentially changing how your gun will foul the barrel. So removing it without adjusting the propellants or the projectiles or something in the system to compensate for it, you wind up destroying your barrel a little bit quicker, fouling a little bit harder, getting way more copper fouling and fire cracking compared to. So the propellants people are doing now are adding in decoppering agents to try and combat that, and it's working really well. So a lot of your lead-free primer projectiles, cartridges, when it first came out, didn't do that. A lot of them now are, which is awesome. A cool advancement, a cool little fun fact on that one. All right. CAH8, not a question per se, but I'd love more in-depth content on ballistics. I found the ballistic gel videos, muzzle brake videos, all of that good stuff. I hope you guys enjoy that. I like geeking out, and I know it doesn't draw the biggest audiences, so I appreciate this comment because they might not be the most attention getting, but this is a topic I'm passionate for, so even one person being like, hey, I learned from that is the coolest thing in the world for me, so thank you. I appreciate it. Nate Eller, sorry. I hear a lot of arguments about hollow point expansion and why a larger hollow point does more damage, but then you hear cops and medical examiners say how hollow points are strictly designed to not overpenetrate and how handgun bullet expansion doesn't have much effect on wounding. Could you explain which side of the argument you fall under? In my testing, most of the modern bonded hollow points penetrate to the same depth in clear gel and expand roughly 2.6. Yeah, that's a tricky conversation. There's a lot to say about the velocity in which a round exits the body is able to provide a lot of lethality because you have that sharp pressure change within the body. So like the blood loss, the blood flow pressure is a very lethal mechanism. What you look for in hollow points is double the expansion size. A hollow point that's able to double its diameter is peak version of a hollow point. Not all of them are able to do that consistently, so that's the tricky part. A lot of them do like 1.5 to be more reliable or to be less barrier bothered. But I do think if you asked me if I would rather have a round that shot through a little bit faster or a round that expanded, I personally would rather have a hollow point. I think that's the reason, that's the standard, with the exception of the fluted projectiles. Those are a whole weird funky mechanic. I mean, the reality is that our bodies are all different, and this is why lethality is so debatable, because not everybody is going to go down in the same way. Our bodies respond differently, our bodies are built differently, and it is such a hard thing to quantify. But yeah, I absolutely am a fan of the idea of a round that gets bigger, because that round is going to dump its energy a lot more effectively in the body, and energy kills, velocity kills, so it's just stacking in your favor. I will say though, overpenetration is a load of shit, and the FBI has absolutely harmed people's perception of an effective round with that one. I'll stand on that hill, I'll die on that hill. Is 45 super... Oh, there's a couple questions there. Ooh, you guys can see that. Okay. Is 45 super worth a look in what handguns can handle? A steady diet of it. I'm gonna keep saying Twee Swift. I'm so sorry. T-Swift Marital Aid is very adamant against, on needing a 460 roll-in conversion kit. I like 45 Super if you're looking to do just like T-Swift, my boy here, said. It is a great round. I personally would not comfortably want to carry that. It's not comfortable for me. It's not something I can keep on my person easily, and it's a more recoily round. So, do I think it's worth a look? Yes, if it's something that fits your person. Do I think it's necessary? No, but there are a lot of good ways to do it. And I actually don't hate T-Swift's suggestion there, so I hope that answers. It's not a round I shoot very often or have all too much love for, just because of how much oomph it has behind it for me. I'm a little bitch, I'll be honest, but... Alright. Dagny Dagger review when? Dagny Dagger. What the fuck is this? Can you guys can see that? You guys can see that. Of course you can see that. No, that was better before. So this is the Dagny dagger, apparently, if you guys don't know that. It looks like a weird sabo-ass rounds. Let's see what we're looking at here. I actually don't know this one. Okay, so it looks like they put a little shell around a pointed core, kind of like a saboed round here. We have some variants, progress, projects, the 9mm Atlas. Wow, wow, okay, I see what they're going for here. Bear with me, guys. I am like browsing this, we're learning this as we go. I haven't seen this one. So they're going for a barrier round, right? They're going for some sort of good penetration and then I guess a hollow point afterward. And of course, if you have a hard pointed core, you're gonna go through a barrier round. But dear Lord, there are better ways to do this. Holy shit. Oh boy. Okay. It's not out yet. I actually would be really curious to test this if it comes out. If I had to guess, this isn't going to penetrate very far once it hits soft tissue. I think you're going to wind up getting these little... Where are they? Let me see them again. If I had to guess, this is going to take all the brunt of energy, get you through barriers pretty well, and this little shell is going to go into soft tissue and then probably break apart in like... It might even, ooh, depending how thin that is, that'll even break apart from the base and move forward. That's not going to penetrate. That's not going to penetrate more than a few inches though, guaranteed. I don't know, but if this comes out, if I can buy this, I will absolutely test this for you guys. We will see. We will absolutely see. That's my thoughts. That's my first thoughts on that. Also, screw you, Maladroit Knight. I'm sorry, I can't butcher that, but apparently I can't say hollow point either, so. You like when I talk about penetration? Yeah, I'm sure you sick fucks do. That's fine. Ooh, I like this question. Are Winchester Black Talons or the newer Ranger Ts, like the Army's new M1153 round, anything special? You know, I'll look that one up for you guys too if you haven't seen it. I've been trying to find the Talons for a review. If you guys see them for sale, please send them my way because I would love to do a video on these. Can we see that? So the Talons are a discontinued round primarily because of how they advertised it. But they have these cool little serrated ends when they open up, and the idea is that unlike a regular hollow point, these have sharper teeth, therefore cutting more tissue and make them more lethal, and the Ranger Ts are kind of like a subdued modern version of that. I'm not convinced it actually does all too much more that you will notice it, but I love the idea. It's fantastic. I can totally get behind it because the story of it being canceled because they advertised it like that is beautiful. Beautiful. Love that. Based advertising. The broke Asian has a single black talon. Find it and send it to me. I will pay you. I will love you long time if you send that to me. I just need one round for a gel block. I'll make it count. Eric Hines asked regular or flaming hot Cheetos. Regular is good snacking food, but I'm a sucker for heat. Flaming hot Cheetos, final answer. Weak sauce, thank you very much. That was kind of you. Would you consider a practical experiment of terminal velocity of 556 FMJ and how they fragment to test the 2600 fragment threshold myth? I actually have been trying to kind of put together some stuff for how I could test that and show that really well. There's kind of two things involving 556 primarily that I want to show. Fragmentation threshold is one of them, and then also what a round actually looks like at range. We're used to seeing gel blocks at muzzle, and it's tested that way because that is like best case scenario. It gives the engineers a good idea for design-wise, but realistically, rounds are not shot at those distances, and what a gel block looks like, 556 at 100 yards is a really lackluster gel block compared to the at muzzle block. So I think that would give you a really better idea of what that fragmentation threshold looks like and why it matters. So in the future, it's just a longer video for me to put together, and I've been slowly trying to work towards it. We'll get there, I promise. I love that question and I love that topic, so one day. One of my favorite types of foods, drinks, and snacks. I am a goblin. Breads, pastries, oh man, anything that's in front of me. I'm just a fat bitch at heart, I'll be honest with you guys. Drinks, alcohol. I'm pretty boring on drinks. I primarily drink water or alcohol. I don't do anything else. Damn, tough question. And John Leonard, thank you very much. Question for the chat. Oh, well, I won't answer that then. Never mind at all. With the high praises for peak alloy, will high pressure ammo become normal pressure in a decorator or such? Oh, it's Strat. Hey, Strat. How's it going? Thank you. I don't think high pressure will be the norm for quite a while. Right now, it's even looked at being for more niche applications. For the commercial world, you have no clue what guns people are buying. So there's a reason ShellTech is the only company really just selling off their cases for people to do whatever they want with, and it's liability. You can build a high pressure round safely and you can fire it in the shittiest gun possible, and then responsibility becomes a debate. For the military, it might take a very, very, very long time before that ever becomes commonplace, because now you have to phase out all of these weapons, and it's a just complete reset, and we know how slow that work is. So I honestly think for like the next decade or so, they're going to be really popular, but they're going to be really popular for much more niche applications, much more like, specific units, not just everybody getting them. And they will continue to get better, and technology will get better, but it's definitely not everybody's thing. Also, yes, this is a mule mug, definitely not a, where was that comment? A root beer mug, but root beer would go great in this. Ooh, Record Villa. I like that comment. The road's being paved by Metallurgy and Alpha Munitions. Alpha Munitions, actually, they're expensive, but they do make very sturdy brass. I wouldn't recommend brass for that stuff, but the OCD stuff is cool and can handle way more. So that's going to definitely help kind of teeter and baby step and make slightly high pressure applications more affordable than just steel. NAS3, Peak, MIM, whatever it be. Yeah, I support Alpha. That's cool. Could I talk about hunting cartridges and projectiles and how they differ from military cartridges? And someone else elaborated. I think that has merit. Maybe a video on its own. And Martino further clarified, I was mainly thinking of monolithic expanding projectiles, since those two are the ones I have experience with due to hunting, but everything is good. And there's a lot of overlap with that. I think the biggest difference is probably hunting is commercial, large scale, so you have to appeal to more people. And when you're hunting, you probably care about the meat afterward, which means you don't want fragments going absolutely everywhere. You want to make it a effective, ethical kill. The military doesn't necessarily care about that in the slightest, and a kill is a kill. We don't care what the meat looks like afterward. So the projectiles you put in those are definitely going to be a little bit different just because of that consideration. In the military, it's also better with higher pressures, so you can get a little more oomph for them on that alone. But there's a good amount of overlap on that. So Sierra, I see your comment here, Sierra RSO2. Boone, you should invite Emily Hopkins to the show. She just got into guns. So a bunch of people mentioned me in her comments on the first video, and she actually messaged me, and we've been slowly chatting a little bit. I told her I would absolutely love to have her out for a shoot. She can try full auto, she can try skeet shooting, clay shooting, long range, USPA style, whatever. I would love to have her out for a casual thing. It doesn't even have to be content. Like, I don't care about making videos. She is so sweet seeming, and I am so excited to see another girl into guns like that, another person getting into guns. So yes, I'm trying. I'm talking to her. We're trying. Boone potty pillow. No. There's screenshots of me floating around. You'll find it. I don't know. Are plastic cases like True Velocity a dead end? The Air Force is actually still considering them pretty effectively. They're still super lightweight, and polymer in general still provides a crazy amount of benefits compared to steel and brass. I don't think it's a dead end. I just think it's gotten a little bit of back burner treatment with the peak alloy cases kind of being a priority. The biggest issue with those is that if you start to go cyclic, they really gunk up and don't cycle well. But it's a fixable problem. I actually would like to see more on the polymer cases. Alright, Mitt Rhombus. Thoughts on if caseless ammo or gyrojet ammo would ever be viable in the real, unlike science fiction? Another good question. I think so. I think it's a cool idea. I think costs right now, manufacturing right now, and application wind up being a little bit smaller than warrants the current R&D efforts. But I think this is one of those topics that are going to be in the back of people's minds, and they're just waiting for the moment for it to be more reasonable. But yeah, I haven't given up on those. Those are cool in my heart. They live on. They live on here. I'm sorry. Thank you for the question. How to reconcile a ZCO taste with a CV life budget? That is not a question I can answer. Godspeed, my friend. You'll figure it out, or you'll have massive credit card debt. Cheers. That's backward. How many boons did I dock? Too many. So many. Alright. Darude Sandstorm. How much the bullet design itself affect You typed a sentence like that. Affect effectiveness as opposed to just weight and velocity. There are a lot of really cool things you can do with projectiles. I want to do a video on, projectile design for dummies. That'll probably come out in the relatively near future. I'm just trying to balance the sweet spot of sharing things and not pissing off ammo companies with sharing, their personal information on how they develop. But if you are talking about lethality, the bullet design will change tremendously how accurate you are, how stable you are when you enter, how you interact with soft tissue. There's a good reason why cheap ammo, you could copy and paste a projectile. It's easy to look at drawings and copy it and you will not have the same performance producing it because there's so much nuances in the manufacturing process, in the internal geometry, and in the tooling you use to manufacture that will wildly impact terminal performance and consistency. So if you guys are interested, that video is going to wind up happening. It's going to happen either way. We'll be honest. I'm interested in it. Point for Matt. Thank you very much. I do appreciate you guys. Any thoughts on terminal performance of big flat-nosed cast bullets commonly used in revolvers? Old-timers like to say they impart a lot of shock. That they do. There is a lot of merit into broader me-plats for a couple of reasons. They hit hard, right? They're not as aerodynamic, so they're not going to fly as far, fly as consistently, but they do put better energy on target. If you work within their range, their terminal is absolutely fantastic. And if you're working with subsonic rounds, even like your more traditional rifle rounds and stuff, having a broader me-plat allows the round to expand at lower velocities. So your subsonic rounds actually benefit tremendously from not being nice little aerodynamic things, but those blunt ends. So yes, definitely a lot of merit to them. I'm not a huge revolver person, but I respect it. Good energy on target, just a shorter amount of working window for that. Alright. How well does 5.56 out of an 8-inch or shorter barrel? And if the 1 in 5 twist is the way to go to maximize the wounding effect? If you're firing to like 50 feet, maybe 100, then 5.56 will be fine. It's not recommended, but 50 feet will absolutely give you consistent performance. Fun fact for you guys, some government agency of sorts is debating a 5-inch barrel. Yeah, that's a lot of conversations telling them why that's a bad idea. If you're looking for suppression, obviously 300 blackout's going to be the redder route, but I'm not a huge 300 blackout person. And if 1 in 5 twist is the way to go, I don't think so at all. Stick to 1.7, stick to 1.8. You're not going to be helped at that configuration with that. All you're going to do is make a more niche, complicated barrel for no reason. So you can use 8-inch, just understand you're shortening your effective range. Gavin Mullet asks, in my journey of finding an effective 38 special bullet, I've noticed that different mediums give wildly different results. I think going into the deets of why certain mediums show different results would be interesting. Clear gel versus the real stuff versus... I have a couple of videos on this. I have a video on my channel on how you go about gel. Brassfax and I recently did a video about, how gel actually works and lethality and all that conversations. So do check those ones out. Gel is never going to be a 1-to-1. Gel will penetrate way further. Gel will expand way more than what you see in a body. Clear gel is far worse. That will penetrate significantly further. That's just shooting into a nice silicone pouch, basically. What you wind up seeing in the real world is different because, thickness is... You know what? I'll answer this question by starting with where gel numbers came from, and I think this will help. The FBI picked 10% because they basically... I don't know if this is what they did, but essentially, in theory, they grinded up a body and they said all of the different muscle tissue types, the organ types, the bones, all of that, if you add that all together and average it out, we think the density is comparable to 10%. So that's everything. That's not like shooting into muscle. That's not shooting into fat. That's not shooting into bone. It is just... You take the standard person, you grind their whole body up, and this is what it compares to, which I think is wildly unfair. You know, you go hunting, animals have fur, they have thick skins, they have different muscle densities. People have different muscle densities and fats and all of that. So it is wildly unfair to compare the two. The difference is that when you take someone who has a job like me, we have kind of like a baseline comparison. So I look at a block and I say, okay, does this in a block? I know it can kind of do that in a person. I'm not just looking at the block and going, it went 12 inches, so that's what it's going to do. And the guy we go and raid their house on, I don't freaking know. 38 Special is a great round. The problem is it doesn't have a lot of energy to it. So if you start to have thicker clothes, thicker skins, barriers to get through, it'll use its energy on those instead of in target. So you do run a risk. But it's fantastic to shoot. It is super easy, super light, really easy to conceal a lot of 38 special caliber firearms. I stand for it. I absolutely stand for it. It's just, you know, a risk. 20% simulates big bone Slavic folk. Hell yeah. Or corn-fed Iowa boys. Have you ever worked with human cadavers? Did you blast my grandma's donated body? I've unfortunately seen lethality testing that I didn't want to see, and they were sprung on me. I don't know if it was your grandma. I'm sorry in advance if it was. She loves 8.6 in every Q product. God bless Q. Why do FUDs insist on keeping 10 mil alive? 10 mil has uses. If you're, you know, hiking a lot and you care about bears and stuff, 10 mil is great. I don't want to shoot it, I'll be honest with you. It's snappier than I care for, but it's not a bad round. I don't hate 10. If I was a beefier boy, I'd probably use 10 more than I do, but I think 9 gets the job done just fine. Anything pistol related is pretty in the same ballpark, unfortunately. When are you going to start your own ammo company and sell A1 and M80A1? The problem is getting those damn projectiles. Lake City doesn't give them away too easily. But that would be fun. That would be fun. If you guys are in my Discord, then you know that we commonly muse about absolutely cracked out coke-induced projectile design, so maybe one day. We'll see. Oop. We're down here. Discarding Sabo round and rifle design. Will this ever take over rifle design? Yeah, in rifle design in years to come. There's comments on that, so let's look at those. To learn about Remington accelerators. There's definitely a lot of value to it. I don't know if it'll ever take on super predominantly. The benefits wind up becoming kind of not worth the cost. It's like the weird, just, it's not worth the efforts. So maybe as manufacturing becomes better, it'll be more prominent, but it's going to be in that weird limbo for the time being. But Sabo rounds and rifle designs do have some merit. They don't make sense in the current market is the problem. Oop. Is there any chance of a Caltech collab? I looked at this one already. I saw this one. Yeah, I love Caltech's coked out ideas. That would be fun as fuck to sit down with their engineers. I don't know if I would do cocaine, I'll be honest. I'll stick to drinks, but even if they don't always put out the best product, I respect the effort and ingenuity. I have a lot of respect for Caltech. They just don't always hit the nail on the head, but that's what happens with innovation, right? If you're trying, you don't always hit it, but you need people to try. So, Godspeed Caltech. Can we donate them more cocaine, you guys? I think that's what we should do. Someone should send a shipment of cocaine to their building. If I could only use one rifle cartridge for the rest of your life, which would you pick? Cheap answer, but we're sticking with 5.56. It's, especially now with all of the high pressure stuff, it's such a good middle ground for a reason. Although I will say I have a soft spot for 6'5" Creedmoor. I don't think I would be able to carry that effectively as like a shit hits the fan thing, and it's expensive as all hell, but I love it. Fun fact for you guys, I wrote the mil spec for M1200. It hits close to home. I don't know what to say. I love it. But yeah, I'm going to be boring on that one. I'll stick with 5.56. Who's your favorite Uma Musume? Get out of here with that focus trip shit. That's the horse girl game, isn't it? I don't have a favorite. Weak Sauce coming in again with another good question. Do I think the mass saturation of 5.56 and AR-15 is holding back innovation? Everyone wants AR parts compatibility and 5.56 is common. Does that influence companies to not explore, or is 5.56 and AR-15 simply so good that we don't or can't yet do significantly better? I definitely think it's holding back innovation because it is so widespread. Replacing it is such an overhaul to do. But unfortunately, if not 5.56, something else. That's just the reality of consumerism and production and development. And it's going to wind up being some cartridge, some gun type, no matter what happens. And I think 5.56 was a good place to land. So it's not that everyone's trying to make 5.56 things. Everyone's trying to stick with 5.56 because no matter how much you develop better, they're like, oh, but we want 5.56. So you're right, but it's inevitable, unfortunately. Mekodra, thank you very much for that donation. Does Weatherby's double shoulder actually do anything? The weird belted rounds it's weird. I'm not convinced. I'll be honest, it's not something I know all too much on, but what I do know doesn't lead me any reason to believe there's merit. I don't understand. I don't. Maybe one day I'll have a better answer. Actually, you know what? I'm curious. I'm going to ask some of my coworkers on that one. So, we'll see. Hop is my favorite character. Yeah, Hop's a great horse girl. What is your general opinion on 10mm and 9mm 16-inch carbines? 16-inch for 10 and 9 is ridiculous. Unnecessary. If you're going to go that big, shoot a real caliber. Get a rifle round. I absolutely love PCCs, PDWs, but they have to be small enough to make sense. And if you're going to do that, why not take advantage of 10 at that point? Yeah, there's no reason to put 10 or 9 that large. They're fun to practice. They're cheaper to practice. So if you're looking for a good range toy, fantastic. You get good familiarity without paying the price of 5.56 or whatever else. But for actual practical use outside of just training and range days, it's not there. Tech Pew guy coming in. Listen, lady, we gotta see dogs up in here. More dogs. Let me see if I can corral him. Mace. Monkey. We'll get Mace. Mace, come here. Come here. Come here. Look. The people want you. We got Mazakine! Asking you shall receive. Oh, okay. Okay. Great question. That was a lot of effort. Alright. She's as big as me if you haven't noticed. Yeah, I'm gonna get a hernia from that. Absolutely. Ooh, this is a good question. Hi, Vivi. Hi. Hi. Can you say hi? Can you say hi? Hello. How heavy is she? She's about 70 pounds. I'm about 100. So, we're a good match. All right, Charles. Someone actually asked a question, I think, about 6'8" SPC, but it's a good round. We'll shortcut that. I will get into that more, though. You assume she's a good girl, obviously. Dumb question. Next. All right. Money, no object. What would be your dream gun? Holy grail. Why make the move to a newer cartridge when you only get slightly better results? All right, those are two separate questions. That's a tough one. I like the idea of an SVT-40, the Tokarev version, like the cool sniper. I love Comblock, Soviet firearms, milsurps. Have a special place in my heart, I know. Trash. But I think that would be a really cool one to have, I'll be honest with you. A lot of cool milsurps out there would be super fun. This isn't expensive, and I could easily buy it, but something that I keep wanting is a Krag. The Krag Jorgensens with the cool little side loader. So if any of you see a good deal on those, they're not super expensive, but I do want one of that. Tim Mooney, you're an asshole. Where do I find milsurp clothing in kid sizes? I don't. I also struggle to find tactical gear in kid sizes. I would be way more kitted out if I could find things that actually fit me. It is terrible. It is so hard. The battle belt that I use was literally picked for no reason other than when I asked them, I reached out, I messaged customer service and was like, hey, do you have a belt in a different size than this? And they're like, we can custom do that for you. So, yeah, terrible. Terrible. What are some factors that differentiate match ammo versus bulk ammo in the commercial market? Why do some match offerings quite frankly suck and some bulk or surplus ammo like the Swiss stuff perform well? Manufacturing process is a big one. Not all projectiles are made equal. Not all propellants are made equal. Not all rounds are crimped the same. If you look at companies that make more well-received, higher-end ammunition, they probably have way more rejects in their ammunition manufacturing process because their tolerances are tighter, they're accepting tighter things, and that makes it better. Whereas if you're making bulk ammo, there's a lot of tiny little factors you don't care about. You have wider windows of acceptances, or your hardness gradients on your cases, the way you treat and condition your brass is going to make a difference on consistency and crimping. Whether you machine or cold head or however you make your projectiles, I'm dying here, will make a huge difference. So you can make the same type of projectile a few different ways and still get super different performance on that, but one's going to cost way more to do, which winds up being the biggest differentiating factor in that one. It's just tighter tolerances, tighter controls, more testing, and more refined manufacturing processes, finer tooling, more frequent die changes, or, Dremel changes, or whatever you're using on that one. Coyote Brownish, what's your opinion on using match ammo for hunting deer and elk instead of hunting ammo? In most cases, you will get the job done just fine in terms of a kill. I don't think you need that level of accuracy for it to make sense, but if it's what you have, it'll work. It'll absolutely work, especially modern match ammo like the Sierra MKXs for an OTM round are extremely terminally effective, and they weren't designed for terminal, but they made it work, so you definitely can. If you want that little extra help in precision, go for it. No reason you shouldn't be able to. Cowboy came in with that origin story. If you didn't hear it, I did do a little spiel in the beginning here, kind of how I started, where I am, how I got here. So scroll back later at some point to check that one out. What are my opinions on the PXT barrels if I have one, or am I looking into testing one? I am extremely enthused on these. I would love to test it. They're a little expensive, and I'm not sure what testing would make the most sense or what I would throw it onto. That's another one that would be a more long-term testing, because I want to beat the shit out of the barrel and see how it wears as well. So it wouldn't be a quick review. It would be something that I kind of work towards as I can. Everything I have seen through work, though, and all the testing I've heard from other companies in the military and what they're doing, PXT with high pressure is absolutely a game changer. I don't know how much of a difference it makes with regular pressure munitions. It still looks like the accuracy benefits are a little bit there, but I can't comment super accurately on that one to know how much it affects regular munitions. But I definitely can get behind the idea. I know Proof put a lot of effort into fine-tuning and calculating what that exponential growth rate is, and it's very caliber specific, it's very barrel length specific, so love them for that, love the efforts on that, and I expect we're going to see a lot more of it in the future, and especially a lot more of it in the military. 308, suspicion is that PXT barrels are going to have some, oh no, I closed that, interesting wear patterns as far as erosion. I'm actually curious on that as well. We'll see. Only time will tell, and unfortunately, military testing only helps us so much, and military testing with high pressure only helps us so much. I want to know what it looks like outside of a lab. But yeah, if I can scrounge the money together and figure out what makes sense to fire from a PXT barrel, it's definitely what I'm interested in. If you guys have suggestions on what you think would be a effective barrel caliber test to do for it, let me know and I'll consider a little bit more concretely what would make sense for that one. Comment there. With all the improvements in powders and cases, do you see modern hunting muzzle loaders getting some improvements in propellants, or have we pretty much tapped out what there is to do? Unfortunately, yeah, muzzle loaders are not as common, so people don't put effort into it as much. That just is what it is. The cost for R&D is high, and the desire for it is low, so it's going to be on the back burner. But I think it's still getting some love. Didn't Federal come back out with like the little packeted muzzleloader powder charges? That's not a huge investment in propellants, but a cool niche little application. It still happens. All propellant development is good propellant development, but it's definitely a back burner. Don't have niche interests. That's your fault. Weird question request. From everything I've seen, the Barnes 110 and 120 TAC TX bullets are generally considered the gold standard for supersonic hunting because they're advertised to expand. Well, this is a big question. Okay, down to 1,400 feet per second. A more affordable option is the Hornady 110 CXs. This minimum expansion velocity of 2,000. But when I've contacted their customer service, they've told me the bullet should reliably expand closer to 16, which seems much more realistic. I reloaded quite a bit, and I've been hesitant to load them because I wasn't sure what their threshold was. With my 9-inch barrel, I'm getting around 2,200 at muzzle, considering working up. If I have ever had the chance, would I be interested in testing? I certainly would be curious to test, so maybe down the line, that's something that I could look into. Depending who you're speaking to on customer service, if you get a dorky engineer like me on the line, they might caveat that answer with something like, realistically it's 1,600, but there's a chance it doesn't work at that point. 2000 is a guaranteed sweet spot threshold for it to work. I suspect 1600 is probably appropriate, but there's a chance, maybe like a 50-50, you get something that doesn't function, and they don't want to be reliable for telling you that it doesn't function at that point. So 1800, depending at the range you're using it, 1800 is probably great. 2000 is a 100% guarantee. I would trust that. That seems reasonable to me as well. It becomes a liability thing of, will it work at that point? Yes, but there's a higher chance it doesn't, so we can't tell you it does. Airsoft Ninja, thoughts on the bolt gun from Warhammer from a ballistics perspective? I love it and I need it, and Warhammer is fantastic. Yeah, I want one of those. That would be cool as hell. And Maladroit Knight, would I play Tarkov? I do, actually. I haven't in a while, but I'm kind of going to get back into it again, so maybe. But I do like Tarkov. I used to play it a shit ton. There's a couple of questions here that are great. What's my feelings on the Sun's recent controversy? I think people are blowing it out of proportion. What the SOCOM bid actually got is far closer to what the the civilian version of the rifle actually is. They didn't submit with the RMAD barrel because they couldn't get it in time for testing. So that's not what their bid was for either. Not to, completely remove Suns from all sins here, but it's a lot closer to what the SOCOM bid wound up being, even though it wasn't what they originally wanted or what they're currently working on improving. We'll see. Pizza Pox, hi, I happen to have some Simex 9mm ammo. What should I save it for? The garbage bin. That shit is trash. Unfortunately, I tested that. If you haven't seen the video, I would not recommend it. It's more of a gimmick than not, in my opinion. It has no actual penetration to it, no real consistency to it. Please don't carry that as a defense option because you deserve to be safer than that round can allow you to be. Unfortunately, I would not recommend that. Am I the only one that wants to know more about who you are? Like I said, I covered that towards the beginning, so go check that out. Twist rate, 1-3 twist rate nonsense, or maybe even from the 114. 112 versus 1-7 lethality from the M16A1 versus A2. Twist rate makes a big difference, but once you get a working twist rate, it works. You can't change twist rate and get better. If the round is stable, it's better. Increasing twist rate technically can expand the round different, but for 99.9% of projectile constructions, it won't make a difference. 112 versus 1-7, from just a external ballistics perspective, 112 is unnecessary. If you're talking about like 5.56, it does not make sense in the slightest. 1-7's far better for what you're doing for modern projectiles. But yeah, once you stabilize around, you stabilize around, and that's that. You can't get more stable. That's not a thing. And squeeze bore. I like the idea of squeeze bore with modern metallurgical technology, maybe even combined with progressive twist rates for an extra level of extra. There are a lot of cool modern projectile designs that let us take advantage of squeeze bore type concepts without it. They even died off in artillery, right? Artillery doesn't do squeeze bore anymore, does it? Not to my knowledge. But yeah, it's a cool early concept. There's just a lot of ways to get around it than what that effort requires. Modern metallurgy has accomplished that same goal without, with other means. And one more idea, high velocity pistol cartridges, is there any merit? I mean, actual high velocity faster than 5.7, like the Liberty Defense stuff. Yes. The problem is probably propellant and barrel length, high velocity pistol cartridges currently wind up being, and we'll exclude like the high pressure cases and stuff right now, but historically you wind up getting higher velocity by lack of weight. And if I'm talking about short range self-defense type scenarios, I want that sweet spot, I want some weight behind it. I would rather have something with a little bit more mass. So the high velocity is not doing much other than maybe barrier, depending on what you're looking for. Like the civil defense going 2,400 feet per second, it's a good round. It can do what it wants. I have some opinions on civil defense, on Liberty. But I think it's more of a gimmick than not. People like to see big numbers. Coyote Brownish, thank you very much. You guys are far too kind. I really do appreciate you all. Will electrothermal chemical guns ever be man-portable? Is there any benefit to EC guns that small? That's a cool question. That's a very niche question. Ooh. I don't want to say never, but that's a hard ask and probably a really expensive R&D kind of expenditure. I think we could. I absolutely think we could, and I think maybe one day down the line it will be there. But I don't know if financially it makes sense. Like, is there a benefit to it? Not if it's a high cost, not if it's a hard thing to carry around, but God, would that be cool as shit, huh? And also Macleoid, I'm so sorry if I say these wrong. How more evolved has JHP's been with short barrels since Harrell's meat targets, which shown that short barrels make jacketed hollow points into FMJs? Also a good question. I'm gonna give that some good thought for a second here. I don't want to say that's fair that short barrels kind of make them more into FMJ behavior. You're not wrong out to a certain point. I do think there's been a lot of efforts into something that a lot of projectile engineers do is spend a lot of effort into designing that jacket. If you're in my Discord, I posted a picture of a like carved out jacket so you can see the internal geometry. It's a lot more nuanced than a lot of people think for some projectiles, not all. So there's definitely a lot of efforts into making them bond better and to also plug things better so that they kind of work as expected despite lower velocities or despite barriers. But there's still a risk on that. There is still absolutely a risk on that, unfortunately. This is why I like the fluted rounds. Noob Master 258, thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for all you do, and thank you guys for your support. It's honestly still wild to me because I never expected anyone to actually watch the videos, let alone being... Why am I throwing gain signs? Because I talk with my hands. Screw you. But yeah, I really do appreciate you guys so much. And Macleoid came in with I would have saw you. You didn't have to do that again. I asked this because micro carries are popular. Yeah, micro carries are absolutely probably the best argument for fluted projectiles in my opinion because they're barrier blind. I mentioned this earlier as well. There's that civil defense with that flex lock core. There's plugged hollow points to try and make sense of that. Unfortunately, if you do a micro carry, you lose some energy. The best way to carry self-defense will always be there's a chance rounds fail, especially hollow points. There's a chance barriers get in the way, skin gets in the way. Train for firing multiple shots. If you are in a self-defense scenario and you take one shot and let off the trigger, you're doing it wrong. Dump the mag. I don't care. Keep yourself safe. Deal with the aftermath later. This Doc's Bloods or Crips. Why not combine the two? Purple is hip. Do you know that reference? I'm so sorry. A couple questions. First instinct is that denser gel would lead to better fragmentation / expansion. This is not true. Where is the density sweet spot? I'll answer that one first. Yeah, gel winds up being tricky. Clear gel will lead to better penetration. Organic gel will lead to kind of a sweet spot between the two, but yes, better fragmentation by default. It's a little bit more accurate. I think 20% is better. People have joked like, "Ooh, why not 15%? The better middle ground." I don't disagree with that either. Unfortunately, gel blocks will never perfectly mimic people, and you just have to accept that, scale it back in all capacity. But any medium you fire into, even like Paul Harrell's meat targets, I love them. I love the idea behind them. There's pros and cons to any test medium, and that just is what it is, unfortunately. Do fragmenting rounds or soft points tend to be more consistent when passing through thick clothing, more specifically 223, 556 Federal Trophy bonded bear claws bullets versus something else? Generalizing, I will say soft points will probably be a little bit more repeatable. Generalizing, I think that's very projectile specific, manufacturer specific, but the round doesn't deform as much, which means it's more consistent. Fragmenting rounds, while you can control when they fragment, how they fragment, it's harder to control what they interact with. And unfortunately, when they hit, that just kind of, physics is a limiting bitch. I love fragmenting rounds. Fragmenting rifle rounds are great. You just wind up having to be constrained in that one. So for like a hunting sake, yeah, soft points make sense. A lot of LE soft points are barrier blind. Can rounds meant to fragment at low velocities be built to be barrier blind? I technically maybe. The problem is, in theory you probably could do that, but I don't think you would get good fragmenting performance, right? We're limited here with what we can do. If you want a round to go through a barrier, you need a good point, you need good speeds, you need to just cut past it with all sense of disdain towards what it's in front of. Low velocities is what makes that a bitch, right? We have a lot of good high velocity rifle rounds that are fantastic in barriers and will keep going, and when they hit a soft target, fragment. But low velocities winds up making that tricky. You probably need a monolithic copper projectile. You need an opening in that to ensure that it breaks. So you probably need a plug in that. I'm not convinced you can't. I just don't think it would be effective if you can. Coyote Brownish, is 9mm Dillon the best PDW cartridge? Thank you again. If you were here in the beginning, then you know 357 SIG is the best PDW cartridge. I told my boy I would say that, so I'm going to say that. Dan Squirrely, I'll stick to you on it. I don't think it's true, but it's what I'm committed to for the stream. In the context of 223, why heavier for caliber bullets are often used in SBRs and some often offered as specific SBR loads. I've taken that this is for terminal, not for external reasons. Can you explain that? Additionally, what barrel length velocities does this become more relevant? Yeah, you hit the nail on the head on that one. If we're going to have lower velocities, then heavier bullets punch a little bit better. Heavier bullets typically have a little bit nicer BC, so you could kind of ignore the lack of velocity performance from that aspect. And I mean, they put some energy on target. That's really what it comes down to, is trying to min-max that terminal performance. You're going to wind up cutting out on that range. You're going to wind up cutting out on that actual distance. But it winds up being a good middle ground. You hit the nail on the head with that. What barrel length velocities does this become more relevant? I mean, SBRs are a good answer to that one. I think it depends on what you're using. If you're planning on firing past 150 yards, then yeah, you probably want something heavier for a short barrel. If you're firing like a 12-inch rifle here for that one, I would go with something heavier. But if you're like 14, 15, 16, you could probably still get away with a normal middle ground weight and some velocity. That's a tricky one. I also think that's gun dependent. If you guys ever want ammo suggestions for your specific guns and your specific like testing setups, please feel free to send me messages in my DMs or anything. I try to help out as I can, but it's picky. It's very picky, and I'm also very shy about giving certain ammo suggestions and answers because I never want to feel like, because I work in the industry, I don't want you guys to think that I'm like pushing certain things on you. I try very hard to be like neutral. I certainly have recommended against my own company many times, but I never want you guys to feel like my work is swaying kind of. I just want to give information and helpful advice. Hustle Bones, yo, slide in the DMs, boys. You got permission. Hit me up. Hit your girl up. I'd wink, but I can't. It would look stupid. I always hear how overpenetration is a big concern, but have never really heard about case studies where bystanders were injured. Do typical self-defense really have that much energy after leaving the target to cause serious injury? I know the FBI standards are 12 to 18 inches, but we live in America, and 6'7", 300-pound, 3-foot-deep giants named Bubba exist. You're right. Far more Bubbas exist than we should. I hate the idea of overpenetration. It's a load of shit. The primary problem the FBI and police should worry about is missing their targets because they miss far more. But I mean, you never want to hurt people, right? So I get the idea of optimizing if you can. I will never discredit a round that goes past 18 inches. I think that's foolish. I think that's limiting. And you are dead on for most. If you're shooting a pistol, if you're shooting like 300 blackout, you dump your energy in the target. If it hits someone, if it hits something else, it's more than likely not going to be lethal. If it gets to that point and we're talking self-defense, I'd rather defend myself and slightly harm someone than fucking not be able to get through and effectively take them down. I can wink, by the way. I just it would be stupid. I don't know how to wink like on just whatever. Maybe I have to not be thinking about it. Don't put me on the spot here. Yeah, the Alpenflage hoodie does look dang drippy. It's from Weekend Gunner. Check them out. We love them. He makes really cool stuff, and I love Alpenflage. And when am I going to be coming back in the Focus Discord? I actually was thinking about that the other day. I left every Discord for a while just because I had some personal shit going on in life, and I kind of just needed space, so I removed all of it, and I've been slowly adding myself back into stuff, but thank you, Macleoid. If I only had one choice for Hog, 7.62 by 39, 5.56, 12-gauge buckshot, 12-gauge slug, in brush within 50 yards or so. Ooh. I'm discrediting shotguns for no reason other than I'm just not a shotgun person. That doesn't mean those aren't effective choices for that. That just means I don't have the preference to them. I think 5.56 has better projectile options. I love 7.62 by 39. It is great and has really great choices. It's harder to find. But, yeah, unfortunately, 5.56 gets that one for me. There's way more projectile choices that can make that effective. But within 50 yards or so, screw it. For the love of the game, I'm doing 7.62 by 39. I like it. I can like around for the sake of liking around. Everything doesn't have to be stupid ass freaking optimal choices. Sometimes we just enjoy things. For a real SPR 18-inch barrel, does Grendel or Arc actually merit losing ammo in part commonality with the general 5.56? cop-out answer, yes and no. I think there's a lot of good niche applications that either of those have a reason for. They can still do a lot more than 556 can under those circumstances. I would say for 85% of users, 556 will be just fine. It's just the reality of it, but sometimes we like stacking our odds a little bit better, and that's okay. Macleod, just please, I will answer your questions. You don't have to keep. Thank you so much. Next tray is 762 by 39 versus 300 blackout, same area. 300 blackout has better projectile options, so my correct, work Jesse's giving you an answer. 300 blackout. But my heart's sticking with 762 by 39. I like it. I just like it, guys. I don't know what to say. When am I doing a collab with Mugi-chan? I want to see two girls with guntisms in one vid. Also, Mugi-chan is super into anime and shit. I am also weeb trash. I would be up for that. That would be fun. Should do a collab with Forgotten Weapons. Imagine Ian going into depth about the gun, and then you go into depth about ammo. I don't know if it will wind up going anywhere, but he and I have actually talked about that a little bit. He's not against the idea, and I think it's a cool idea. It's just a matter of finding something that makes sense for both of us. So maybe in the future, either or both of those can happen. Is there a real reason for anyone to own a handgun not chambered in 9? Yes, the triple action thunder chambered in 50 BMG. Yeah, that's a great answer. Great answer. There's benefit to carrying heavier calibers. There's benefit to carrying lighter calibers. After the Bodyguard 2 came out in 380, that is largely what I've been carrying. Every so often I go back to my 43X, but it works. It's easy for me to conceal. And like I said, either way I'm dumping rounds in, so it'll get the job done. If you're in bear country, if you're more worried about like thick winter clothes, 10 is great, 45 is great. Just nine's a sweet spot that works for most people. But there's reason for otherwise. I will acknowledge that. If price, platform, and availability weren't an issue, which would you choose? 556 by 45 or 545 by 39? Recoil-wise, 545 by 39 is going to be a little bit better for me. Gun-wise, 545 has some drippy-ass options. We love that. But I go back to what I was saying before. 556 might have just better modern projectile and load options. So just from a use case scenario, you could get way more versatility in it. But 545 is cool as shit. If it got the same treatment, it would absolutely be a comparable effort, and we love it. Ooh, Asian massage reviews. How's those happy endings for you? Loaded some cases that can't handle being withdrawn from a die without rim separation to 100k PSI, but didn't adjust my gassing. I'm not answering that. How goes the bread making? I'll be honest, I very recently, like a month ago, got rid of my sourdough starter. I kind of want to start fresh. I still make other breads and other doughs, but my sourdough era is at a current pause. I was getting frustrated with it, and I had some time away from home and didn't know how to... I mean, I guess I could have kept it in the freezer or fridge, but it's been going sad. It's been going sad. Thank you for bringing it up again. Have I ever wanted to make a ballistics gel bust of Brass Fax's head? That would be hysterical. Great suggestion. We love that. Maybe one day Ballistic Dummy Labs would help make that happen for us. I told you 6-8 SPC would come up again. What are my thoughts on it? It's a great round. It is. It has a lot of good application for it. It's not something that I necessarily would go crazy over recommending, but it really is a high performer. And I will be honest, with Federal's 6.5 peak, if you have stuff in 6.5, congratulations, you now have 6.8 SPC and a little extra performance, so it's going to die off a little bit more. But for just standard rounds, for standard weapons, great choice. Is it possible to make a round that both tumbles and fragments? Very much so. A lot of fragmentation is actually caused by tumbling in some instances. One can lead to the other. A round that kind of tumbles, yeah, but it's not ideal. But it is a mechanism that goes hand in hand. So just having an inner steel core that is designed to tumble and having an outer copper jacket that was designed to fragment. Yeah, you do kind of wind up seeing that application. And something you can kind of do is change how the jacket and core are married to one another. So as the rifling imparts on the jacket, how the jacket squeezes after the rifling kind of changes its shape. The two components are going to spin together differently. These hand motions are terrible. But the core can wind up spinning independently of the jacket under certain circumstances, and you can get funky shit like that happen all the time, which is actually why you wind up seeing some jackets like come apart in flight before the core, because that was a really piss poor attempt at marrying them. What do I think is the best M193 on the market? I'll be honest, I think they all get the job done just the same, and I also buy whatever's cheapest and most available on SG Ammo or AmmoSeek. M193 is not one that I'm going to lose sleep over being better than one another. They're all pretty on par. Although I think the, what is it? Is it the PMC, the bronze? They make light pressure stuff, I will say that. Ooh, this is an interesting question. Okay. What is the craziest, but still somewhat practical, within a decade or so of R&D, small arms ammo you can think of? I'll start. Small cal, radar-guided hypervelocity bullets made of uranium and HGRM, propelled by octazocubane, sticking with it, base propellant. Interesting. Very interesting hypothetical choice there. We'll stick with that. We'll pause on that. On a similar idea for your like base propellant, something that's been looked at is using like RDX as a propellant, as a primer, which would be cool as hell. I like the idea of radar guided. I don't know how much sense that makes for small arms. That's cool as shit. But I will share with you guys something that was briefly looked at that I got to kind of pseudo work on. This was cool as hell. There was the one-way luminescent tracer program for the DoD that has since died off because some general bastardized the program so badly. But one of the considerations for making the tracer one way was putting a little LED light on the back of the projectile and using the projectile as its own generator to power the LED light. And it worked. It absolutely worked. Just cost for production didn't make sense. But the cool thing with having an LED light instead of a trace component and energetic mixture is that you can control colors, you can control pulse and light patterns. Blinking lights are easier to pick up for the eye as opposed to a steady stream of light. Different colors work better in different conditions. So that's a cool one that I actually got to see in the makes and might be a little bit more obtainable in terms of use case. But radar guided would be cool as hell, or like little mini like railgun type rounds. I've seen some artillery that has experimented with like electrically initiated rounds instead of energetically, because as like the breech door closed, it completed the circuit and fired the round. That could be a cool thing that could work in small arms as well and kind of get rid of the need for primers or change how we think of primers, but ooh, that's a cool question. That's a really cool question. It's MacLeod. Thank you so much. You're ridiculous here. How do the Italians make shotgun ammo cheap? The Italians who like shooting very much are like super into it, very prestigious, very niche. And I think it's just they don't like guns all too much, but they like shotguns, so they made it work because everything else about it is expensive as fuck over there. Yeah, they definitely made it cheap. I think they switched their propellant out with pasta and naps. I'm not sure, I'll be honest. Cornhead 37. If I'm building evacuation bag gun loadout, can 147 grain 9 do the job for that purpose over needing a 5.56 system? Specifically 147 grain. I specify 147 grain as I would like to be suppressed in this scenario. Thanks, Boone. If you're doing an evacuation scenario and you're anticipating shooting really close range, even if you're using like a PCC, PDW, it can get the job done for sure. I would just always make the argument in those types of scenarios that you want to stack the odds in your favor as much as possible. So if you're doing a bag gun, you're probably doing a bigger gun to begin with. So an SBR 5.56 will give you more energy and better performance than, you know, a PCC 147-9. Will it work? Yes. Why not take the chance to do better? Is kind of my thoughts on that. Would electrically primed ammo be legally classified as center or rim? Border? I'm not sure. That might wind up being a weird thing. Alright, what effect does the ratio of the case's internal volume versus the volume of the powder charge have? Is there merit in having smaller internal volume case for subsonic cartridges? This is a pretty basic answer, so I'm sorry if this is like not what you're getting at. But there is the general relationship, obviously, with energetics as you change the combustion chamber, and that's what the cartridge winds up being. So if you have too little headspace, you're constricting the air, the movement in which it can burn. If you have a super full case, you wind up getting diminishing returns on pressure and velocity. Conversely, if you have too much headspace available and the powder can move around, you might not burn everything as effectively. So something that I do at work sometimes is we do fake loads at distance. So we still shoot at 15 feet into a block or 15 feet into chronos or whatever you're doing, but we download the cartridge so that it has enough propellant to mimic what the velocity would look like at 500 yards or so. But you have to stuff the case with like cotton in those scenarios, otherwise it just won't burn properly and you'll get super inconsistent performance, super ineffective loads. So there is that sweet spot into efficiency and consistency and getting those tight SDs on that performance. Is there merit in having a smaller internal volume case for subsonic cartridges? Yeah, you will wind up getting it more efficient. For the case of subsonic, though, I actually think what matters more is OAL. You probably want a subsonic cartridge with a larger OAL, because in certain scenarios, what winds up happening is the propellant kind of burns faster than the projectile, and in the rifle will wind up like going past the projectile in some instances, and then kind of just distort how it flies and wind up giving less consistent results. Not that it doesn't matter on the case volume for a subsonic, but I kind of care within reason, obviously not a super empty case. I care more about OAL than about case volume in that circumstance. Timothy, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate that. You guys are fantastic. We're almost at the top here. All right, I know I'm late, but my nerdy ass wants to know. You're not late, you're just on time. Wizard is never late. Wants to know what you think about the XM157, and then more broadly, the idea of bringing in tech and sensors for improving soldier lethality. I'll be honest. My experiences with the XM157 is that in all stages of testing, we had to turn the optic off. And after 2 years of NGSW testing almost nonstop, I think I saw it turned on 20% of the time. It's a cool idea. I'm sure they fixed it more since I've gotten out of that program and have experience with it. Soldiers have been using it. It's not like it's not on the field right now. I do like the idea of bringing in tech and sensors, but guns and optics are married. They don't separate from one another. So there's a lot of features in the XM157 that just don't make sense when you consider how the system is used on the field. But there really can be a lot of cool applications to it, and especially from like a weight savings perspective, you kind of put everything in one go. It's a super limited use case on it. Second question, any opinions on smaller guided munitions and / drones for longer range, harder targets? I think that's another one that winds up being the cost doesn't make sense for the application, especially for snipers. That could be cool to kind of like fine tune in towards like a more lethal perspective. It's expensive for what you get out of it right now. Drones obviously make a lot of sense, and there's a lot of AI drones and everything like that right now that are coming out for both flying and for evading and for target acquisition, which is cool. But yeah, tech and warfare go hand in hand, and you will always see those two be combined. MacLeod, please stop. Please stop. I ask because it blows me away that I can get a case of 250 of the Cleaver brand, hotly loaded too, for $95 shipped to my place. It's honestly a fantastic question. I will say there are some propellants that Europe is able to push out that are harder to get in the States that might help in that one. I also think there is legitimately a much higher interest in shotguns there that just winds up subsidizing the price of it. I don't think they're doing anything super special crazy in terms of like, secret cost cutting or secret like money saving events. I just think it's a supply and demand scenario there. MacLeod, please stop. Why has the U.S. never been able to figure out how to make 7.62x39 steel case cheap, even after PSA talked big on moving a whole factory from Europe? I wish they followed through with that. I would actually really love that. The U.S. has always sucked at it, especially if you add water into the system. And the U.S. is not super great at making actual in-house steel anymore. We're really dumb about it, which is unfortunate. I don't think it's something that the U.S. cares about from a use case weapon standpoint, and because they don't care about their application in their guns, then why are we going to put the effort into the ammo that goes with it? It's unfortunate. I definitely would like cheap 7.62x39. I used to use a shit ton of it, and now things just kind of sit because I don't want to pay for the cost. That's the unfortunate reality. Yeah, there's no good reason other than a lack of desire to and a lack of infrastructure for it. Mr. Plate 1775, thank you so much. Finally caught one of these. This is my first one, so would love for you to do a video on some of the things that came out of the Naval Surface Warfare Crane, like the 77 grain rounds and other ammo types. I actually do a lot of work with Crane, both in my previous and current employment, and there is a lot of cool rounds for sure. When I do topics like that, even some of the other videos that I've done, I always try to be cognizant of what might breach NDAs, what might get me in trouble, what's appropriate to share and what isn't, and kind of when things are in their developmental state. But I I've been putting out some kind of like industry experiences and stories and all of that type of video out lately, and you guys do seem to have an interest in it. So it's something that I'm, if you're interested, then I'm happy to keep sharing. I certainly have a lot of stories and a lot of experiences. Unfortunately, those videos come with just generic B-roll and all of the comments of people saying, what do I know? I never fired them, even though I fired them. But comments suck. Yeah, I would like to, though. I think there's a lot of cool, programs that I've seen, programs that I've fired, what's died in the industry, those types of conversations. So we'll get there. Elijah Arman, 2015. Please don't tell me you were born in 2015. That makes me feel so old. 90124 grain, jacketed hollow point, standard pressure versus plus P and a Glock 19. I will always go for plus P. You get a little extra oomph, and the recoil is not changing to make it a problem. Especially if you're just plinking at a target, I don't care. But if we're talking defenses or anything like that, then plus P all the way. Hamelin, babe! Hammy girl, I love you. Thank you so much for joining. I love you. Hey. Coyote Brownish again. Thank you so much. I heard that 135 grain plus P critical duty doesn't work good in short barrels, and am I gonna get killed if I try to use the same ammo in my G19 and G43? I don't think it works bad in short barrels. I will specify that. The unfortunate reality, geek engineer cop-out answer is there is always a round that is better for a specific gun. If you're trying to do a one-size-fits-all, critical duty will be fantastic. If you know what you're carrying, optimize something for what you're carrying. I'll be honest, I carry the HSTs if I'm carrying 9. I carry fluted projectiles for my 380. There's a lot of really good choices, and any hollow point will have some pros and cons and some reliability concerns. That's just unfortunately the truth. Yeah, test with your specific gun. That's just how it is. Test with your gun, test with what you're carrying. If you switch what you carry, figure out what you're doing for the majority of those. Lena Mitchlick, North Starfish. Look out, Focus Trip. No, Focus is great. Love the Focus community. You guys are great. Focus is a cool dude, so. All right, Beakmaster 67. We're nearing the top here. This has been a long stream. This has been great, guys. Thank you. I know, wait, I answered that one. Oh, then we're on the last one. Oh, man. All right. How do you choose the right powder for a cartridge you're designing? What are the rules of thumb when starting a Wildcat? There are a lot of reloaders out here who can spit this information out off the top of their heads. I'm not the best at that. I will admit my faults of a engineer here. I have a nice little cheat sheet of powders and how they rank in terms of speed, like fastest to slowest burning powders. I know what powders make sense for rifles. I know what powders make sense for intermediates and for pistols. And I also know what's used for similar performing rounds. If I know the weight that I want, if I know the velocity that I want, I can look and say, hey, typically accurate 2200 is used. Let's see how it performs there. And then from that point, I'll probably, once I just pick a baseline to see what it might do, where it might, land me in terms of performance, I'll probably look at those pressure peaks and curves and see what I want to improve upon. Do I want to expand the peak? Do I want to delay the peak? Do I want to increase it? How do I care about cycling? What barrel length am I doing? And I'll kind of look at my chart and say, okay, I want something faster by X amount. Let's kind of move up and try from there. But yeah, it's a little bit of trial and error. It's a little bit of knowing what's used for other cartridges. So if you want something similar, let's try that here. There's probably a couple of different ways to approach it, but typically when you're designing a round, you either have velocity goals in mind, pressure goals in mind, distances in mind, barrel, you have some set of parameters to work from and you hone in from there. The real question. Indian street food or root canal? Root canal. Fantastic question. Oh, actually, some of you folks did ask questions on my Instagram, so I want to get to those as well. But once I finish these, then maybe we'll call that out. Ways of making ammo cheaper for American civilians. Is there a new case or something that can make it cheaper? Cost of constituents needs to go down, first problem. I think the more popular things become, supply demand will always wind up cutting into it. Propellant is the biggest issue right now because it's very much there's just a lot of limitations. You can't get a lot of propellants, or if you can get it, you can only get it in small quantities. You can make it a lot cheaper though by just unfortunately lowering your expectations. If you're okay with a little bit more variation, then you can get cheap ammo. There is a lot of waste just for the sake of keeping tighter tolerances. So yeah, it's components right now. It's constituents. We need primer alternatives. We need propellant alternatives. And until those two happen, it just is what it is. If I want to get into reloading for a single caliber, could it be slightly cheaper than buying? Absolutely could. That's probably the cheaper way to do it. Especially if you find some niche caliber, like some weird, not as common, like milsurp or something like that. You just need to reload a lot, or, be prepared to sit down a lot, and the time constraint is there. We talked about reloading a little earlier in the video, too. Lena Mitchlick, North Starfish, thank you so much for the donation. Am I dumb for thinking peak alloy could be used to increase 300 Blackout Super's velocities enough that we could just use that in ARs instead of going with a new platform like NGSW? NGSW is absolutely going to be a very short-lived, at the end of its life, non-existent freaking thing. I give it like 3 years service life and then it's done. 300 Blackout is a tricky conversation to really take advantage of high pressure cases, whether it's peak or any other alternative you use. It's a cool idea. It's a cool potential, and we're going to get there. The limitation right now is propellants. They don't burn as effectively as they need to do to really make sense of putting 300 Blackout in a high pressure case. So propellant development is one that's going to have to improve for that to make actual sense. Not that 300 Blackout high pressure won't exist and won't be cool until that point, but to really take advantage of it, we need better propellant. Stand by that one. 300 Blackout versus 5.56 in home defense. I'm sticking with 5.56. Home defense, you're short range, it'll get the job done. You have a lot of better options for usability and a lot more reliable guns. I don't hate 300 Blackout, it's just picky and a lot of people don't do it right. And question for the live. In your opinion, experience, is 9 capable of hanging with 10 for an application like defense against bears, moose, or other big animals, assuming the use of heavier for caliber hardcast or bullet types appropriate for the application? I think a lot of modern 9s, high pressure 9s, the fluted projectile 9s, there's some modern applications that make it a valid contender, but I would still always recommend 10 in that case. If you have 9 on you and a bear is attacking you, you bet your ass you're shooting the bear with the 9, and you can probably get somewhere. I'm not taking a chance on a grizzly, that's for freaking sure, so unfortunately it just is what it is. Is Hornady there's no second, it's just Hornday. Hornaday, a lot of people say that and it always irks me. I don't know why. People say it at work and it bothers me because you should know better. But the only one making the anti-setback round, so you can load and unload your gun for training and out your carry ammo back in without setting back the projectile. Bought from for my TSAS, Stakeout 45, normally carry gold dot for carry ammo. The trick to a anti-setback round is going to be very gun dependent, depending on your bolt, how it kind of slides into place. The whole system might be a little rough on the round and encourage more step back or expansion in some cases than others. You see that a lot with the To Boondocks. Actually, it's such an aggressive system that it causes the projectile to fly out of place. So you wind up changing the OAL once you chamber to when you fire. But it's not as super big of an issue as people think. I see it a lot with police units where they kind of cycle around a lot and they're really manhandling it, but I think for most people it's not that big of a problem. Good cannelers will fix that. That's not really a thing in for rifle ammo and pistol ammo though. Waterproofing will fix that. Also not really a thing in pistol ammo. Otherwise, I don't know who else is putting that effort in other than Hornady. Better crimps, those types of things are options, but I hesitate to say unless you're really fidgeting daily, I think it would be a bad issue. It's just something that does happen, so be cognizant of it. I don't think it's an issue enough to warrant buying their rounds, though, just for that, honestly. Dick Cheney's heart. Are the rumors about Hop true? All of them. Every single one. It's unfortunate, I understand, but someone had to tell you guys. So that was it. That was all of the questions you lovely folks put out for me. This has been a longer stream. This has been a really long stream, and it's been a fun one. I hope you guys have enjoyed that. But we're at like 2 hours. Mr. Plate, thank you so freaking much. I think a SOP mod series would be cool to see you talk about some of the neat little things like ammo types, the O-ring on the extractor, etc. Thank you for the cool videos. Thank you for watching my videos. I appreciate that. Thank you for the donation here. I agree with that, and I also really like the SOP mod stuff, so that's one that I would be a little bit more passionate to talk about. Great question, though. I always appreciate your guys' suggestions. Obviously, videos kind of just take time to cycle through. So there's a lot of cool stuff you guys have recommended, and I'll probably get to eventually, but it's just a matter of when I can fit it in with work. Lena Mitchell come back with setbacks are just a part of life. Unfortunately, sometimes more than others, but yep, we've all had a lot of setbacks. That is true. But all right, I've been at this for a little more than 2 hours with you guys. Thank you so much for the support, for the comments, for the questions, for the donations. I've had a lot of fun doing this, so if you guys are interested in more lives, then I would love to do more lives at some point. Do a video using focuses? Absolutely not. Stop with the questions. Everyone stop with the questions. I'm trying to sign off here. Have you watched Modern Tactical Shooting's video on the upgrades to the M4 program? If so, what opinions do you have about that? I have not, actually. I'll be honest, I haven't, and I will now. And if you send me a message on Instagram or something reminding me, I will answer this question for you. Yeah, I'm curious to see what they have to say on that one. But thank you guys so much, and stop it, I love you, you're doing amazing too. Take care, guys. Thank you for support, thank you for being here, and we'll do more lives. Stay tuned for Sunday's video.